Some video games leave your brain exactly how they found it. Metal Gear Solid isn't one of them. In fact, if you pay close attention to how it handles space and authority, it completely alters how you look at tactical design. Once you notice what Hideo Kojima was actually doing with your psychology here, it is impossible to unsee it. You will never look at this screen the same way again, because this title relies on a completely different kind of tension than a standard action game. It actively forces you to realize you're being controlled, even while you think you're the one holding the controller. And those two things keep fighting each other for the entire game. Quick context: 1998 PlayStation, directed by Hideo Kojima. You play as Solid Snake, sneaking through a nuclear facility, hiding in cardboard boxes like a very committed delivery package. Cool. Simple. Except it stops being simple the second the game starts messing directly with your head, rather than just snakes. Here's the core idea. This game turns the player into part of the surveillance system. Avoiding guards is only the surface layer here. You're constantly aware that you are being observed by enemies, by the game, and occasionally by something that feels uncomfortably close to breaking the fourth wall. And the genius part, you start cooperating with it. This cooperation starts with the radar. That little map in the corner feels helpful at first. It shows enemy positions, vision cones, patrol routes. It's basically cheating, right? But the second you fire a gun or trigger an alert, it disappears. Now you're blind. So the game teaches you something subtle. Information is a privilege, and privileges can be taken away. You stop playing aggressively. You move slower. You hesitate. The radar turns into a total crutch, training you to completely depend on it. That's a pure system of conditioning. The architecture of the levels feeds right into this trap because of the camera. Every room is framed like you're watching security footage. Fixed angles, slightly awkward perspectives, corners you can't quite see. You're playing Snake, sure, but you're also watching Snake, which means you're already split into two roles, the character and the observer. And that split keeps getting worse because enemies do a lot more than just patrol. They search. And when they search, the music changes, the camera tightens, and suddenly, every footstep feels loud enough to wake the neighbors. You start thinking like the guards. If I were them, where would I look? That realization changes everything. You transition directly from escaping the security network to running a simulation of it in your own head. Once the game has you thinking like the system, it takes things a step further and starts talking directly to you. Psycho Mantis bypasses Snake completely to attack your actual hardware. He reads your memory card, he comments on other games you've played, he tells you to put the controller on the floor so he can move it with his mind, which sounds like a cheap trick, until you realize you actually did put the controller down. You followed instructions from a fictional character because the game convinced you it might matter. That's the moment the boundary breaks. Control shifts away from the digital avatar, pulling you into the simulation itself. This psychological invasion keeps escalating until it forces physical compliance. The famous switch controller ports trick? That is a brilliant metagame puzzle. That's the game reaching outside itself and asking you to physically change your setup. Most games stay inside the screen. This one climbs out of it and starts rearranging your furniture. Even the quieter moments, like the codec calls, play into this claustrophobia. Every time you pause to talk to someone, the screen shifts into this weird, compressed interface. You're technically getting help. But it feels like being monitored, like someone is always listening in, always ready to interrupt. And half the time, they're not even helpful. They ramble, they argue, they drop exposition like they're being paid per paragraph, which creates this strange tension where information is both necessary and intrusive. You want it, you also kind of want them to shut up. The only real escape from this constant noise is to hide inside the cardboard box, the dumbest mechanic in the game. You put a box on your head, guards ignore you. That's the joke. Except it works. And the more you use it, the less it feels like a joke. You start trusting it. You start relying on it. You willingly turn yourself into an object to avoid being seen as a person. That's such a bizarre trade. And the game just lets you do that. No commentary, no judgment, just, yeah, that's a valid strategy. What's wild is how perfectly this mechanical submission connects to the story, because the plot is obsessed with control. Genes controlling identity, governments controlling information, soldiers being treated like tools, and right in the middle of that, there's you, holding a controller, following orders, sneaking where you're told to sneak, fighting who you're told to fight. You start noticing something uncomfortable. Snake isn't the only one being used, and the game knows you'll notice. That's why it leans into it. This constant manipulation turns every major encounter into a test of compliance rather than skill. Boss fights become less about reflexes and more about understanding the game's rules or breaking them. The Sniper Wolf fight turns patience into a weapon. The Hind D battle turns a stealth game into a chaotic action sequence just to throw you off balance. It constantly shifts the rules just enough to keep you unsure, because certainty would give you control. And control is something this game is very careful about handing out. Even failure feels fundamentally different here. Getting caught is way worse than a standard mistake. It's loud, alarming, almost embarrassing, like you've been exposed. When the alert sounds, you immediately face a relentless, organized manhunt that floods the room from every corridor. It feels personal, which is ridiculous because they're just AI. But the game frames it in a way that makes it feel like a system reacting to your mistake. You made a mistake, and the whole system noticed. Around this point, something interesting happens. You stop thinking about winning. You start thinking about not being seen. That becomes the real objective. And that shift changes everything, because now you're playing defensively, cautiously, almost nervously. The game slowed you down without ever telling you to slow down. Here's the thing that sticks with me. Most games want to empower you. They give you tools, upgrades, bigger explosions. This one gives you awareness. And awareness is way more uncomfortable, because once you realize how much the game is controlling your behavior, you start questioning your own decisions. Did I choose to hide here, or was I guided into it? Did I figure that out, or was I led to it? That's a very strange feeling for a video game to create, especially in 1998. And yeah, parts of it aged. The controls feel stiff sometimes. The pacing can drag. The dialogue occasionally goes on like it's trying to win an award for longest phone call in history. But those rough edges almost help. They remind you this thing came from a time when developers were experimenting wildly, throwing ideas at the wall. And somehow, one of those ideas was, what if the player is part of the system we're criticizing? That's such a risky thought, and it works. So when people remember Metal Gear Solid, they talk about the story, the characters, the voice acting, all fair. But the reason it sticks, it made you aware of yourself as a player, not in a philosophical sit and stare kind of way. More like, oh wait, I just did exactly what it wanted me to do. And then you keep playing anyway, because now you're curious. That curiosity is stronger than any stealth mechanic, stronger than any boss fight, stronger than any plot twist. You want to see how far it's willing to go, and how far you're willing to follow. If you survive this deep dive without Psycho Mantis reading your mind, you can drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It lets the algorithm know we are running a successful operation here. Or, you can just sit there, ignore the button, and pretend you're making your own autonomous decisions. See you on the next one.
Humans can choose the type of life they want to live. The important thing is that you choose life. And then live